GM everyone, welcome back to another episode of Touch Grass Podcast. This is a very special one. As you all know, we've been covering Hyperliquid for the past couple of years, and me and Rachit were like, why don't we start a series called Humans of Hyperliquid? And the first person I wanted to have on was Jords.
I want to
You
say
may have,
the name is still a question mark, KG. I'm still trying to
yeah,
hope the humans are hyperliquid, but yeah.
but
Okay,
yeah, we'll
okay.
see. But yeah,
I
Jords is someone I've been following for a long time, and recently came across his Substack that I've kind of fell in love with. But yeah, Jords, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
thank you so much. I thought for a while you were going to say it's very special because of me and not a new series, but I appreciate it nonetheless. Thank you for the words in the Substack as well. It's I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. For those who don't know you, I know you've been, we'll talk about the Substack and all of it, but for those who don't know you, can you give like a quick intro about yourself and a little bit of background before crypto, after crypto, anything you can share?
Yeah, I think I have a pretty broad interest. I am like very active and sporty and love to get outdoors, so like surfing and snowboarding and all those kind of things. But I think I kind of equally fit into the more nerdy topics. Like I'm very much into like literature and chess and crypto, obviously, like kind of tech stuff in general. So I think I can fit into a lot of different conversations, which is a bit of fun. I am Australian, if you haven't found out from the accent, but now I'm based in EU. And yeah, I think that's kind of a general background. But I think I like to think crypto is the least interesting part of my life from a personality point of view, but it is something that I'm deeply interested in. I keep finding myself kind of coming back here, you know what I mean? And that's because it is a hobby, and that is something that I've learned over time that I should kind of define it like that instead of it being this, source of income.
100%. Yeah, I think everyone who follows your account kind of gets that sense that obviously you don't just talk about Hyperliquid all day, you talk about so many other things as well. But yeah, when I was doing this job, when I was kind of preparing for this part, I was going through your Twitter profile, what George's been up to, not just over the last 2 years, but before that as well. And I saw that you were a big Solana maxi kind of, you're you're in the trenches, you're into NFTs on Solana. Can you kind of walk us back to that period of your crypto journey? What was that like before, you discovered Hyperliquid and went all in?
Yeah, yeah. I guess you have I think a lot of people have inflection points with everything, right? Like you think about your life and how you got to where you are, and there's probably a few key moments. Like every day we make a million decisions and things like that, and it's all a butterfly effect, but there's usually a few key really large moments. You think about like getting with your partner or breaking up with your partner or like some major things happening. And I think for me in crypto, one of the biggest inflection points was I was in the ETH ecosystem. I was doing the NFTs. I was doing the normal things you do over there in like 2020. And I forgot exactly when, probably the start of 2021. Midway through 2021. I just remember that there was ETH had felt like the ecosystem was building, but I could no longer kind of be early there. Like I was in and around like the Bored Apes and the Wicked Craniums and all of those like kind of NFTs that started in that time. And I just felt like, well, I'm never going to own a punk. Like the punks are already around. I wasn't in the punk Discord, and I felt like there was a lot of opportunity around. I was happy to be a part of it, but I wasn't early, and my Twitter handle back then was early-ish. So I felt like I was early-ish, but not kind of enough. And then I remember there was a fracked mint, which is like, I mean, it ended up dying, but they kind of were trying to build a narrative of like, oh, art blocks on Solana. And I just remember using Solana, and back then, obviously, it was very, very new, from the point of view of like the ecosystem didn't really work. The NFTs, they didn't have a minting process. Like you had to send money, like you had to send Sol to a wallet, and then they would send you back the JPEG. Like it wasn't a transaction; it was like two transactions. And I remember using it and thinking like, wow, this is actually way smoother than Ethereum, and I can see this building. And I think the change for me was, this is an ecosystem that I can be early on, and if I become if I pick this niche as my expertise, I think I'm going to be early there and people will want to hear about it. So I think if you scrolled all the way back to my tweets back then, you'd find, threads about soul punks and like what you would call back in the day of alpha. And I was kind of part of the reason my account grew a little bit was because people wanted to have information on a new ecosystem. And I kind of picked that as my ecosystem to be aligned with. So, and from then, like, obviously I owe a lot to Solana. I have a lot of love for the people over there. That was my, most of my friends that I've met through crypto, I know through that ecosystem. So yeah, like I think I was just a little bit quicker than others to realize that there is something more there than maybe, like, I was a bit more curious than others. And I think that curiosity treated me very well.
And I think that's funny you say that, because whenever you see these cohorts of people who are in these trades, it always kind of, you go back to the same one, the previous narrative that was early. Like the same people who were early to early DeFi days, Uniswap days, were early to NFTs on Solana, and not meme coins, but NFTs on Solana. And the same people are early to perpdexes. Like I've seen Jess talk about the same thing and many other traders on Hyperliquid as well. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I think curiosity is like at a huge premium in crypto, and belief, I think there's so much crap in crypto. Like there's so much shit that is completely worthless that the norm response is, well, this must be worthless too, and that might serve you right in most times, but it's just much better to like just dip a toe in, just explore it a little bit. Because I think if a lot of people use Solana in 2021, for instance, and they just got a wallet and they, they did one swap on something, they probably would have been like, hey, this is interesting. Like other people might want to do this, but the norm was like, it's too cheap. It's a poverty chain. It goes down. Like it was too easy to seek the comfort of ignorance. And you kind of saw that in a lot of people rushing later and trying to catch up.
Yeah, and when I was in college, right, like I used to use ETH, and I used to trade NFTs back in the day as well. But I was never profitable, by the way. I always lost money. but I was like, I'm spending so much on the gas fees, and it's like ridiculous. Back then, I probably didn't have any money. Even $50 is a lot. And when I switched to Solana, I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Why is this so obvious? So I was early to that, and even though I was not early to farming Hyperliquid, I was kind of early to seeing the vision as well. But I've seen so many of your posts back to the TGE days, even early 2024, that you were saying that Hyperliquid and I think it was Magic Eden or something, but these are very good opportunity in the space right now. And also, I think on the TGE day, you said something. I saw so many people saying, I'll sell it at $3, and you're like, this is minimum a $10 billion bet and nothing less. So how did that come about? How did that conviction come about? And yeah, just talk to us about your Hyperliquid lore.
Man, it's funny to think about. I remember being like, yeah, $10 minimum. And I was like, that's a dream. Like I'm a dreamer, and like, that's going to be, oh my God, imagine if it's $10, you know what I mean? And it's funny to look back at that and go, oh, damn, I probably should have treated it a little bit differently. Yeah, I just think that like I found Hyperliquid at the start of 2024, and it was a similar kind of light bulb moment when, I guess you could compare it to the first swap or first buy I did on Solana. It's like, oh, this is just really obviously better than the things I'm using right now. I came from Solana, had the promise of NASDAQ at light speed. Like that was the whole thing, and I, as a believer in that chain, I came to be pretty, I thought that was the goal, and I thought that they could get there. And I was using the different platforms that were popping up on Solana. Like you had, it's like almost a joke now that you have mediocre devs love building mediocre dexes, and mediocre investors love investing in mediocre dexes. Like it's this just kind of flywheel that seems to always happen. And I was using them, I was using Drift and Adrena and Mango Markets and like all of these things that were there. And I thought that they were better than some of the other options, maybe. But they all like looked terrible as soon as I started using Hyperliquid. You know, it was one of those moments that like, as soon as you started using the other thing, you just kind of go, oh, well, this isn't a comparison anymore. And I actually had this conversation with the Drift team. Like, I've always liked those guys. Like, the founders are Australian. I'm not super close with them, but in my interactions on Solana, they were always friendly. And I had this conversation of like, oh, you know, why do you use Hyperliquid or whatever? And I just kind of said, yeah, it's just way better. You know, like, why wouldn't I use it? Like, kind of be objective about it. And the conversation was always, well, you know, decentralization. And I mean, it's ironic, of course, that like Drift ended up getting hacked, even it being more decentralized. Naturally, the risk is more than just the, you know, one side of the protocol. So yeah, I think Hyperliquid to me I wasn't super active with the trading side, but I was in the HLP vault. I was just very aware of it being a better product, you know, and I think I became kind of like a behind the scenes ambassador more than anything. Like, at the time I was running Boogle, which was like a group of pretty heavy traders. And if I saw anyone post a screenshot of trading somewhere else, it was just like, oh, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing that? You know, and it wasn't like in hindsight, I should have been kind of shilling my ref code and like getting them over and stuff like that. But it was just like, oh, no, just like use Hyperliquid, you know, and that wasn't something that I was necessarily super public on Twitter about the whole time. But in private conversations, if you spoke to me from any of 24, 25, it was just like, what are you doing? Like, why would you be anywhere else, you know?
How many points were you getting in those early days? I did like maybe a couple hundred here and there, but I was pretty late. But as you were early 2024, I guess you're not that early, but how was like the points thing back then? Were you just doing a couple million volume and you're being rewarded with, I don't know, a couple thousand points?
I think it always felt low, you know, like it always felt low regardless, because I think you just have this weird number bias where it's like meme coins are valued at, you know, 0.00001, so you can hold 1 billion tokens. So Hyperliquid took this weird approach where, like, especially at the end, but even at the start, you know, you're getting a few hundred points a week or something, and you just kind of feel like, oh, that's not a lot. You know, it didn't feel like a lot. Whereas, you know, I remember in Camino season 1, I had like 3 million points or something, you know, and it just felt, even though it was worth, like, the points are worthless, I don't think anyone had a really good understanding of just how much the points would be worth. And it probably ended up being a good thing, because I think at the end of the day, a lot of people stopped farming because they didn't want to farm for 10 points a week and do millions and millions of volume. But those 10 points are probably the best points you could have ever hoped for, you know, in the scene of airdrops. So yeah, I remember at no point did I remember seeing my points and go like, this is gonna, you know, make me a bunch of money. Like, that's never where I was. But at the time, like, I think a lot of people forget, because I think a lot of people were trading on Hyperliquid and losing money, and they got their money kind of back or made money through that. But if you just shoved like 6 figures in the HLP vault, the HLP vault went up like 30-40% per annum or something ridiculous. So I was just had stables in the market that I was hoping would not be exploited and getting paid points, while also getting paid dollars, with only having, you know, exploit risk and not actually really having that much directional risk. Like, obviously that's a different conversation, but I was just like, yeah, great. You know, like, this is outperforming other DeFi and there's potential point incentives. Great. You know?
Yeah, and then George, like, sort of come to like TGE date. I think it was like November 29th, I want to say, 2024, when TGE
Sounds
happened.
right.
Do you remember the moment the TGE happened, like how you felt? You know, like all these points now accumulating into hype tokens in your wallet. Talk us through that day.
I remember when they announced like the percentage of tokens that would go into the community, and it was kind of all of a sudden like, oh, okay, like this is going to be bigger than anticipated. I had a really weird like kind of mental game to play, because at that point in time, I was really excited to log off. Like, I was pretty exhausted. I was kind of sick of the market. I captured a lot of upside this cycle, and I was just like, fuck it. Like, I'm pretty over dealing with this on a day-to-day basis, and I really wanted to log off like by the end of the year, or basically. So I had Magic Eden was like start of December, I believe, and Hyperliquid was end of November. And my goal was like by Christmas to just kind of like be gone. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want to deal with the Twitter stuff. I just wanted to, I was going through some personal like life changes, and I was like, I'm going to go traveling for a bunch of time, you know, and that was this weird kind of mental gymnastics I was doing of like, I don't want to sell this token, but I don't want to hold anything. So it's kind of this mix of feelings of elation because I had just made a lot of money, like that's always good. Confusion of, you know, not knowing whether I wanted to hold it into the indefinite future. You know, you do these mental games of, oh, well, you know, maybe I'll just like, I'll have this amount and I'll keep that amount and then I'll sell the rest. And I didn't really know how to handle it. But I just remember being really happy because not only like I got some money, which was good, but you also get reinforced for being right. Like I got right. I was very right about Hyperliquid was more consensus, but also Magic Eden was one that a lot of people kind of called me a retard for. And it's always nice to be right, you know. Being wrong and rich is good, but right and rich is better is the saying. So yeah, I remember being very happy for me. I remember being very happy for my friends who I kind of brought over to Hyperliquid. It was this moment of like, you know, I had a few people reach out to me and say like, I just made a disgusting amount of money. Like I thank you kind of thing. So yeah, it just felt like a collective win, and it felt like it also felt really nice. Like in the days after the airdrop, it was finally, we had beaten the curse of every airdrop just going straight to fucking zero. Like I remember like the wormhole airdrop and the parcel drop and like these other things that I'd kind of farmed, and just immediately like, even Magic Eden, you know, immediately just like down.
Jords, if you don't know, Rachit works at Wormhole.
Oh, really? Oh, shit. My bad. Great coin.
Yeah,
I mean, Wormhole. It treated me well.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, that day, it was surreal because I was like, I saw so many tweets, and I tweeted, I think you could literally just full port Hyperliquid and while it open, and then you can just make some money. And I bought it at, I think, 2.8 or something. But I sold it at like very quickly at $8 or $9 because I didn't have that conviction like everyone else. I haven't used the platform.
But it was hard back then, though, to be fair.
Yeah, and the vibes were so good. Like, forget about all that happened before it, but just seeing people on the timeline, you know, flexing their P&Ls. I mean, that's definitely a day to remember. And I mean, it was awesome. I mean, it pretty much changed how people look at projects, how to evaluate projects, how to look at teams, the team premium. So many of these all cool discussions kind of started from that point. I mean, it was like up only for 30 days, but yeah.
I also think it's really nice. It's a really nice example. Like I was talking to like Bloomberg reporter the other day, a real one. I know it's such a common scam, but it was an actual person who works at Bloomberg. And we were talking about Hyperliquid, obviously, because she was kind of trying to understand the oil trade. And I was saying like it's a great example of what crypto can add to the wealth, like the wealth effect. You know, it's users who helped build Hyperliquid and create liquidity and bring new people who were valuable and more valuable at the start than new users are now, got this immediate return. It was launched low. Like me, as someone who has to pay taxes on the value on receipt, the fact that it was launched at $2 was extremely friendly. It was a massive allocation, and you had this massive wealth effect that everyone who contributed got paid, you know? And it's a really nice thing to say, like, hey, ignore all of this horrible stuff that's in crypto. You can point to it's a problem. Look at this little darling, and this is like what wealth transfer can look like in ideal circumstances.
100%. Like if you're talking to someone, you know, a lot of my friends work at Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and stuff, as not just on the banking side or investment side, but I've talked to them about crypto, and I always like, I can't talk to them about meme coins. I can't talk to them about NFTs, but there's this one thing that I can talk to about what's happening with the macro stuff, and you can do these trades on permissionlessly and whatnot. But it's always cool to talk about Hyperliquid. I want to chat about our next question is about stuff that's recently been happening on Hyperliquid.
Or TG, before
Yes.
that, can I just ask one more question about the TG moment?
Sure.
George, historically with every airdrop, we've seen the community sell instantly. What made the Hyperliquid airdrop at that time so lucrative that no one was selling? Like the narrative on crypto Twitter was every big airdrop recipient is going to hold. What do you think happened within the Hyperliquid community to form that narrative that no one was selling their airdrop at $3?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think that there was a lot of people who sold, and I think that I would be very curious about the stats of how many people sold, but I just think that there was a lot of capital waiting to buy as well. I think that there was a lot of people. I remember the stats coming out the day before TGE, and like people were tracking how many stables were being bridged over to Hyperliquid chain, and it was just like, oh, okay, there's a lot of capital that are just gonna shove all in as soon as this opens, because the price started generously. Like I think if you had a normal TGE where you have like every chart starts with this massive spike and then just all the way down, and then you start trading, like if you look at the Magic Eden chart, it launched at $12 on some exchange and then it went down and up. Like you have this usual price action. I think there was a lot of people ready to full port it. And I just think that there was a lot of people who believed this one was not going to be like the previous. It seemed like there was better alignment with the team. It seemed like every action towards the TGE was with the community considered, with the tokenomics considered. It just felt like it was a much more professionally approached airdrop. So I think it was less about people going, I'm never selling this. And it was more like the fear was selling too soon, not too late. And I think it's the opposite with a lot of airdrops. It's, I don't want to be the last one holding the bag. With this one, with Hyperliquid, certainly in my experience was, I'm actually really scared of selling this thing because I think it's going to go up higher. And naturally, I sold before I should have. Most people have. And I remember having that conversation with my friends. It's like, this is the one that you sell too soon, not the one you sell too late,
100%. I think when I was watching this happen in real time, so there were like two groups, right? The ones who used previous perp dexes like DYDX, GMX, all these things, and they kind of put Hyperliquid in the same bucket, thinking this is just going to be another DEX, even though they were early to the narrative and used it. And the other side was like, there are no VCs, the narrative is awesome, their interactions with the team on Twitter. At the time, Jeff was much more active on Twitter. So that kind of solidified the conviction and they were holding. And I mean, even some of the best traders, I think, sold too early, like below $10 from what I've heard. But it's quite interesting. But I think, George, like I've been seeing you kind of swing trade Hyperliquid over the last year or so. I think you pretty much caught every big move. I don't think, even though I think a lot of people did, I think once everything is kind of established that this thing is different. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it's also like I did a post recently about like information asymmetry achieved through relationship building. Like we think about asymmetric information in the sense of insider trading and like, I know that there's an announcement coming tomorrow, so I buy, and that's like the traditional sense. But I wasn't part of this cohort of people, but I'm sure that there was people who just were more aware of how amazing Jeff was. You know what I mean? Like if you were just more aware of his background, his talents, what he built before, his like kind of dreams and goals with the protocol, then that would have reinforced a lot of conviction. Like if I was more aware of, say, that article that recently came out about like the Hyperliquid team and everything based in Singapore, if I had read that before TGE and was more aware, that's not insider trading. That's just being aware of like how confident certain individuals are. And I think that there was probably a lot of big holders who were aware of the team's accomplishments, you know what I mean? Or more aware. And that probably could have just been achieved by research, not even meeting people. But I wasn't fortunate enough to happen across that knowledge.
We have a friend who is a pretty early Hyperliquid trader as well. I don't know if I think he's active on Twitter as well, Hamza. He also said in our pod that he met the team in Singapore and he's like, this is different, I'm all in, and he's now building his own protocol, Hyperliquid. So it's cool to hear these stories. And for those who don't know, Jords is talking about the Colossus article, so we'll link it as well. You should read it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and of course, like Hamza's story is like October 2023. Like he was like when Jeff was just starting off.
Must be
Have,
nice.
have you met? Yeah, have you had the chance to meet Jeff yet and the team? George?
No. I actually haven't been to any crypto conferences, meetings, or I'm very fortunate enough to have some of my closest friends. Well, definitely some of my closest friends that I've met through crypto over the years. And they're kind of in different places around the world. So I'm fortunate enough to see those people regularly. But I've kind of slowly onboarded them all into my WhatsApp instead of having to. I went through a long period of time where I just refused to talk to people on Twitter or Telegram, and slowly broke my friends down to WhatsApping me. So it's a more intimate relationship. But no, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting anyone from the Hyperliquid team. I haven't participated in anything kind of in the IRL side of that thing as yet.
Yeah. I mean, Telegram gets crazy, I think, once you get big enough and it's just thousands of groups. But I'm still on Telegram. I mean, we will talk about Ton and our chair, Pavel kind of taking over. But before that, I want to kind of continue with our Hyperliquid discussion. I've been experimenting kind of with the outcome markets last couple of days, and it's been super fun. It's like just taking a directional. I mean, I haven't put much capital, but it's been super fun playing around with it. Considering I'm not a big prediction markets guy, I always felt like perps are a better trade. What are your thoughts, George, about the recent kind of launch of these outcome markets on Hyperliquid, and where do you see them go?
Yeah, I think it's natural progression, right? Like you talk about the house of all finance, and you talk about kind of all of the things that have been crypto native that have expanded to users that are no longer kind of crypto centric. And I think obviously the biggest ones are Kalshi and Polymarket. And I recently just kind of discussed this with someone about, well, Hyperliquid isn't Polymarket. Polymarket has the US. Polymarket is regularized. Like you have all of these conversations, but Polymarket was once a obscure on-chain predictions market on fucking Polygon. Like people don't really think about. Most users on Polygon don't know that the poly stands for. Most users on Polymarket don't know that Polymarket stands kind of for Polygon, which is I think underestimated. And I think I see the upside for Hyperliquid in the same sense of there are a lot more users out there who can be captured without needing a MetaMask and without needing to know what Hyperliquid is. Like the way that Hyperliquid are building is so that the rails are there for other people to add towards it. So I see outcome markets as this new medium of speculation that is objectively and potentially, we'll see, but the fees are lower, the structures can be better, people can build already. There's several different kind of user faces and interfaces that are trying to be more friendly to users and kind of Polymarket-esque. So I wouldn't be surprised if the upside is people using Hyperliquid that don't know what Hyperliquid is, and they're using it through different protocols that look similar to their app, And outcome markets, I think, is a good start. I think there are a cohort of people that instead of wanting to directionally trade, because I don't know, I do think that it is more gambling in the sense, but some people feel more comfortable in that form of gambling. You know what I mean? Like I remember my brother worked in like software for a gambling company, and he would kind of say the biggest gambling addicts are the ones that bet point by point tennis because it's like the quickest fix you can get. And I think point by point can be attributed to candle by candle. So the smaller time frames of these outcome markets, obviously I wouldn't recommend trading small time frame outcome markets unless you have a weird edge and that's your thing. But as a market, I think it's the start of potentially a lot more liquidity for Hyperliquid. And I think that people are viewing it wrong in the sense of if it's not an immediate success and they don't, eat Polymarket's lunch overnight, that does not mean it's a failure. It's about putting out things that can house a larger cohort of finance. And this is one of the key things that we've seen find PMF in crypto. And this is an important addition to Hyperliquid. And what it is now is not what it will be in the future. I think dare to dream a little bit and you'll understand that it can be much bigger or it can be the same, but there's not necessarily a negative outcome, which is what you want being shipped,
Yeah, I think at least the crypto side of things, forget about the long tail stuff on these other Kalshi and Polymarket. But I think just let's say they launch 5 majors cryptos, they launch these outcome markets. I think they will do considerably more volume than others, is what I'm thinking. But George, one thing you said recently that I found interesting was, I don't know if it's you or someone in your comments, but I remember saying that Polymarket doesn't really have a moat and Hyperliquid does, and that's why it can kind of succeed long term. I want to kind of understand your thinking there. Why do you think they don't have a moat? Yeah.
I don't think that was my quote. So I don't know if I can claim full responsibility on that one. I think the moat is marketing more than anything, like Polymarket. I think at the end of the day, and that's not necessarily dismissing that as a legitimate moat, like users and momentum and being on, the side of the octagon when these big fights happen. Like this is a legitimate moat and it's momentum. They have a list of partners and they have a lot of marketing. And I don't think Hyperliquid necessarily needs to vampire attack Polymarket. I think what they need to do is provide the rails and the fee structure to allow others to go after that. I don't think Hyperliquid wants to be, Hyperliquid outcome and be on the center of the octagon and things like that. Like Hyperliquid want to be the AWS behind the Polymarket. You know what I mean? Like Polymarket runs on Amazon probably, but they don't get the direct credit for it. So I see Hyperliquid as being able to provide the opportunity for other teams to try and compete with that and go after their marketing moat and go after the momentum and things like that. You know what I mean? So I don't think that it's necessarily like Hyperliquid not having a moat, I think is true because they're just kind of pushing out the tech and allowing other teams to build on it. And then it's up to those teams to try and figure out how to kind of catch up to the marketing moat. But I think that a lot of people who will be trading outcome markets outside of the crypto markets, like when it naturally expands to betting and whatever other outcomes we decide to put into, the ideal world is most people interacting with those markets aren't crypto natives,
100%. I think the one thing that I was maybe sorry if it's not you, but I think it was someone saying regarding the marketing and distribution side of things. We've had AK from QFX on recently who's talking about this Google test where the ticker matters on your DEX. Like if you have something that most people can't recognize and they see, let's say S&P 500, you see it on Hyperliquid and it's something different on others, it's likely that the person who's familiar with the thing that's on Google will go choose that particular option. Right now with prediction markets, Polymarket is that option, like the most household name. Like I follow sports a lot, right? These guys are quoted in every ESPN show, every sports, betting, fantasy sports, whatnot. They're always quoted on these platforms, and these are exposed to hundreds of millions of people. So I think that's where I think they have a big massive advantage. And whoever is building on top of these markets are competing with that kind of brand and not just the tech and lower fees. But yeah, it's super exciting, honestly. Like I can't wait for more markets to kind of launch. Are you personally? I know that you have said you're not trading it, but do you think this debate will never end around season 3 going live? But do you think farming it is worth it?
Look, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it depends on your time costs and how efficient you are with things, right? Like at the end of every decision is a time cost and a money cost. So if you think of if you can farm it efficiently and you lose minimal money, or if you're a good trader and you can make money while, quote unquote farming, or you just kind of push through more volume than you would normally, or you do it for, delta neutral strategies and things like that, then absolutely it's worth it. Like a lot of my best decisions come from, well, the downside is I lose time and the upside is I gain something. So I think it's worth it if you have the time. If you don't, then I wouldn't be like kind of sweating it out and going out of my way to try and farm it and believing in a similar kind of airdrop as the season 1, of course, or the TGE. But I mean, there's few protocols out there that would return similar value, you know what I mean? And I think if you are aligned with the Hyperliquid thesis, then you kind of see that as something that the team might be interested in, and also something that the upside is quite high on, and that a lot of people don't believe in, which is generally like a good combination of things to support a thesis, but you are setting yourself up for potential disappointment. So it's kind of like a personal choice of how much time and bandwidth you have to participate in everything,
Yeah, I think it's just fun. Kind of, you can fuck around and with like a couple $100
fuck around,
and see
find
what
out.
happens.
Yeah. I think
Another,
KG,
go ahead.
what I had about farming Hyperliquid. Jords, what do you think about the broader Hyperliquid ecosystem, like the Hyper EVM or stuff that's being built on top? Does that stuff interest you at all, or is that something that you're actively looking to allocate into, or just understanding more broadly?
So I think it very much interests me. You know what I mean? Like, it very much interests me. I think it's still, at least in my understanding, it's quite in its infancy. You know what I mean? Like, it's still the hypercore, and the main protocol is where pretty much everyone will go to. If you have people questioning the Hyperliquid trade or the thesis in general, it's chalked up to just being a DEX. Like, there hasn't really been, like, Jeff has started changing the message to the House of All Finance instead of kind of like, the best DEX. So you have the narrative slowly changing, but the protocols and the liquidity and everything is kind of catching up, I think. Like, you have obviously, like, I remember when I first kind of went into Solana, right? You had NFTs were trying, but not really there. You had a handful of users. You had Solid was kind of it, like the default wallet that was in the protocol. You had very early like DeFi things that weren't really there yet. You had Cope was a coin that didn't end up doing much, but it was like kind of the only thing that was attracting liquidity that was centric to there. And then you had like Marinade were trying for liquid staking. Eventually you'd have Jito going for MEV. Like, you have these same kind of requirements on every chain. And I say requirements, obviously, like NFTs aren't a requirement, but they're a natural outcome of culture, I think, and speculation more so than culture, to be honest. But I think all of those things is my vision of Hyperliquid. That yes, the House of All Finance, but the House of All Finance should be reflective of cultural layers that are important as well. So I am extremely curious as to how that develops. I am of the belief that they will develop, and I think that being a part of that, aware of that, and curious of it will be both lucrative and fun. Like, I really enjoy the early stages of cycles. I enjoy the early stages of protocols, layer ones, whatever. And this is the one that interests me the most right now. So I'm very curious of it, but I'm yet to have one thing that I go like, oh my God, everyone needs to get in on this, because I think they're all coming,
That makes sense. So, have you started looking at the Hyper EVM ecosystem from an allocation point of view? Like, what I've noticed about the Hyperliquid ecosystem is that a lot of these earlier teams are just angeled by people who've made money on the airdrop, or people who are early to Hyperliquid. Essentially, it feels very close knit in terms of the people that allocate and try to build the ecosystem. Have you started allocating like angel checks or like pre-seed checks in some of these companies?
No, I mean, I don't know how I feel about angel checks, because I basically, I did like 3 or 4 and I had an extremely high hit rate, which was lovely, but I don't really want to dilute that, like I invested in I don't know, a handful of protocols and they all did really well apart from one. And I kind of am just like, that feels too good to be true. That doesn't feel like genius. That just feels like good luck. And it feels like the next 10 I'll touch is just going to go to zero. But I'm always very curious, like I'm always very willing to hear interesting ideas. And I think if I hear about someone doing something interesting, there's a part of my brain that clicks like, oh, okay, this is actually something different. So I'm very open to, and I have, as relevance has increased on the Hyperliquid ecosystem from my my portfolio and my profile, I start to get DMs about people building interesting things, and I'm very willing to engage with new people building interesting things. And I think that if there is something that I believe that is innovative, interesting, or just generally like a bit of fun, if someone's doing some sort of art creative endeavor that's Hyperliquid focused and doesn't feel extractive and feels organic, then I am definitely curious about contributing my time, my money, my reputation, depending, like these are all things that I would be willing to lend to the right person doing the right thing. But inevitably, like, you need to be really careful about lending any of those things, especially reputation. I'm extremely cautious to, like, I've never been an ambassador for anything, which I think is probably part of why I can still tweet and my comments aren't filled with people hating me, like I think it's something that I've been very protective over. So I would be cautious on that side, but I'm always curious about what people are building. And Hyperliquid is the ecosystem that interests me most at the moment.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, like, I think just building on this conversation, when we talk to a lot of VCs about the Hyperliquid ecosystem, a lot of VCs have now started changing their mandate so that they can hold hype on their books. But the way that they view the Hyper EVM ecosystem or the broader Hyperliquid ecosystem, they view it as, if we can hold hype, like, why do we need a Hyperliquid beta or a secondary bet to Hyperliquid? The ROI mechanics that they sort of evaluate is, would I rather be in this deal with a vesting period locked up for the next 4 years, which is the Hyperliquid beta, or would I rather just be all in on hype? Is that thought process something you've encountered while your conversations within the
Also
ecosystem, or is
on
it more of a
also
single view?
building on top of that, as Achit said, talking with VCs over the past week, one thing is, like, I think the recent news as well, where they announced pre-IPO markets, and everyone's like, now Venturals is dead, right? And adding on to that, like, do you still see the motivation to come build on Hyperliquid, where the core team and Trade XYZ, they can just build on top of this layer or they already have that's so successful? Like, let's say with Ventures, right? They've been live for a year or something, and right now, if you had to choose between Ventures and Trade XYZ to trade pre-IPO stuff, you're obviously just going to go to Trade XYZ because they probably offer much deeper liquidity, better fees, and all of that. How do you see that when everything is kind of being built by the core team, not just the core team, but also there's one large entity in Trade XYZ?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I mean, inevitably you have different kind of structures, like you have in a lot of different protocols or L1s, for instance, you have like the Sui Foundation or the Solana Foundation or the Ethereum Foundation. Like you have these kind of foundations that give grants to team and encourage building and things like that. And I think there's obviously a lot of pros to encouraging building, but there's also a lot of just kind of nonsense that happens with that. Like if you get a grant from the Near Foundation to go build a DEX over there, and you build the DEX there instead of Hyperliquid or wherever else, like you're kind of building it for the grant and not for the users. I think people see Hyperliquid, or at least how I see Hyperliquid, is you have a very strong and loyal user base, and you also have a high value, like you have a high ticket, high value user base. Like you think of BNB chain or Solana even, or these other kind of side chains or I mean, not that Solana's a side chain. I'm just going to clear that before I get flamed for it. But you have these ecosystems where meme coins thrive or NFTs thrive, and you have kind of average low dollar accounts. I think Hyperliquid is an ecosystem where you have a lot of high value accounts and a lot of highly concentrated liquidity with people who are willing to throw money around. And you have an ecosystem where people are curious and willing to try new things. So I think if you cared about success and traction and capturing high value users and high value wallets, I think Hyperliquid is a natural answer to that. I do think that there's fears that Trade XYZ and Hyperliquid can build on top of Hypercore, whatever you're building, and that's natural. But I think that that's kind of a normal, like a more capitalist world. It's like the competition is there, and that's natural. You'll have acquisitions that probably occur over time. Like if you build something that is truly elite and you have something, you build out all the tech on the Hyperliquid rails, the team might look to, I mean, I can't talk for the team, but they have their allocations and they have their budgets and things like that. And if they can find a way to acquire instead of rebuild everything, I'm sure that that's not an impossible outcome. And I also think there's a lot of things that aren't just tech based, you know what I mean? Like I see it coming from my background from NFTs and events and clothing and merchandise and these layers on top of an L1 that is the cultural layer, and I think there's a lot of opportunity to build out the cultural layer on Hyperliquid, and that's not something that is necessarily like acquirable or like I've been to a lot of crypto parties that were terrible, and I've hosted some that were objectively really good, and I don't think that some people can just kind of acquire a party and fill it with people and have a good time. Like those kind of things are more nuanced, and taste is a difficult thing to replicate, and taste isn't code. So I think you have a lot of potential to build out interesting things that aren't just like, oh my God, well, VCs won't back me because Hypercore might compete with it,
Yeah, and that's so. Even though in the like normal non-crypto people definitely understand that in crypto, it's always my TV is bigger than your TPS. I'm I'm more fast. I'm more this. I'm more that. My blocks
TPL.
are big. My blocks are bigger.
Yeah.
But that cultural aspect is very unique. I think Solana has this because they kind of had this massive comeback story and everyone that kind of wealth created. Even though now it's kind of a little polluted with the meme stuff, but I still think it's there. And Hyperliquid definitely has this kind of layer with this kind of we're contrarian, we're non-VC, we're this. I think that just needs more like an amplification layer on top of that, and then it kind of will take off to next level. Uh, yeah, and another thing, George, I think we've been talking too much about Hyperliquid. I want to take a small kind of tangent to just trading stuff. You recently made this post about I'm let me just pull that up. About overexposure and big moves are happening. You might not feel satisfied. You might feel underexposed and whatnot. But you said, I'm super happy where I am with the barbell, BTC, and hype. And even though we are getting into a very interesting territory in crypto right now, how do you kind of give advice to someone who's trading, who's new to crypto, wants to build a good portfolio for the bull market? How should they approach their portfolio construction? Because I think so many people get it wrong. Even when in last cycle I got it wrong, where I used to pay attention to so many things as the bull market was raging, and I kind of paid the price at the end of it. But what would be a simple advice someone can take when it comes to portfolio construction? I'm not saying pick coins, but just how to approach it.
Yeah, I think there's a few things that I always go back to. One is like this concept of being so close to opportunity is a blessing and a curse, and being in crypto means being close to opportunity. So you just need to be aware of the fact that you're so close to so many opportunities and you're missing this and you're missing that is a blessing, and it's something that you're never ever going to achieve all of the success that's on your timeline, because that's a highlighted section of all of the people's best days. It's kind of this concept of, on Instagram, everyone has their best day ever once in their life, and you might see the compilation of 500 people's best day ever and look at yourself and go, oh, well, I didn't get married today and I'm not in Maldives. Like, what am I doing? And I think crypto is kind of like this hyper capitalistic version of that, especially concentrated to Twitter. So I have the concept of like, you need to be very aware of pick your bets and stick with them. But then also the kind of counter to that is be willing to get a blank piece of paper at some point and say, would I allocate the same now than I have in my portfolio? You know what I mean? Like it depends on your tax situation a little bit, but say you're holding, I don't know, I'm not going to name coins, but say you're holding a coin from a previous cycle and you've got sunk cost, you're in the sunk cost and you're like, well, fuck it. I actually don't want to deal with the mental energy to deal with this coin. It just is like, it's just a permanent fixture in my life. This is what it is. If you couldn't look yourself in the mirror and say, right now, if I could allocate my portfolio into, 40% this, 40% this, 20% this, and you look at your portfolio and it's nothing like what your ideal allocation would be, then that's stupid. Like it's never too late to reassess where your portfolio is. And I think a lot of people, especially even now, like this stage in the cycle, things have started to go up a little bit. You kind of feel like it's too late, but like Bitcoin's just 80K, it's still down. We're talking like 30, 40% from all-time highs. This is the time to rebuild your portfolio. This is the time to be curious about different markets and tokens. And I think if you're holding dog shit from the past, or you're on borrowed conviction because you read a thread last year and you're just stuck with something, like cut it. You don't need, just because it's 90% down and it's only worth 10% of what it was, doesn't mean you can't put it somewhere else and be better off. So I think that the reassessment of what you're holding is good. And for me, concentration works. Like I think if I hold 2-3 coins, then that's good, because I can be very aware of the circumstances with them and feel very comfortable with them. And I like to only hold stuff that I would be fine if it went down 40%. I could look myself in the mirror and go, you're not a fucking idiot. You had a thesis. If I'm holding Fartcoin 80% down, I hate myself.
The growth as a trader and investor I saw in myself was when I had 50 tickers in my watch list 2 years ago, and right now I have 5. And I was like, wow, that works. But one thing, like I think a lot of people are like, this period has been very bad, and yesterday I was thinking about it. Was it really that bad? And I was like, yeah, 10-10 happened. Even I lost a lot of money. I round tripped a lot of money. But the opportunities when you actually were paying attention were there, right? Like this whole privacy narrative, it wasn't stopping. Zcash was right there. And AI trend was booming. Everyone wants private AI. Venice did 10x. I was talking about it the other day, like crazy, from bottom to 10x. And obviously the hype trade was there as well at 20. So there were opportunities even in this bear market, as long as, and I think you made a good point, right? Concentration is good. And for people like me who want to be active, and what has been working is have your conviction bets right now. For many people, it's BTC hype, or it's BTC hype, Zcash, or Zcash hype, whatever. And then just fuck around with all the leftover capital with these flavor of the months kind of thing. Even though, like, I think you just stick to things and your things that are working. But yeah, man, just seeing 2 or 3 tickers every day has been such a relief, when I don't have to learn about the new altcoin that's ripping. I don't have to worry about scams. I don't have to worry about memes. When you eliminate so much of crypto, it becomes so much simpler to navigate, I would say. Anything else you want to add on the portfolio side?
No, I mean, I think you just want to not overthink it, like you want to have things that, like I have this conversation with my friend Rain, who's a very, very good trader. And like, when you buy things and you kind of look more medium term, you can buy it knowing, well, like even if I fuck up the entry, I actually think it's going to go higher. So worst case, I can just kind of bag hold this and it'll go up. And you can only do that if you're actually buying good stuff. Like you can't buy hot ball of money stuff and then just go, oh, well, it's gone down 20%. I'm just going to hold it until it's back up. And there's a lot of comfort knowing that like, oh, I bought Hyperliquid at 35. It's at 27. But you know what? Like I fucked the entry, but I'm probably good with the exit if I just wait. And if you're trading quality, then that comfort is always there. If you have the right conviction. If you're trading dog shit, then you don't really have that comfort. And that can be very disconcerting and lead to bad decisions.
Another thing about the trading stuff before I want to talk about that is nothing non-crypto as well, is you mentioned belief before, how important that is. Even if you are super good at drawing lines on chart or you use 20 indicators, whatever, but when you have that belief, like for example, when I was like at the lowest moment last year, 10-10 happened, all this happened, but I kind of knew, okay, fuck it, we're backs against the wall. I still trust myself. We've been here before. I trust myself. I have confidence in myself, and the comeback has been slowly forming. But George, there's this other group of people that I think are in the similar situation where they lost a lot of money because of what's happened on 10-10 and whatnot. Obviously, I think it's something that could have been prevented. You should not have all your money on a DEX in the same place. But for someone like that who's slowly coming back and start trading, how do you uh, kind of converse with them and talk about this importance of confidence and belief as a trader? How do you, I mean, I'm sure you had these instances as well where you were on a losing streak or you lost your confidence. How did you get it back? And is there any advice you would give to someone that's starting out?
Yeah, I think my first advice would to be honest with yourself if you're actually a good trader. Like there's this advice that like keep going, you'll make it. But I think that there's a lot of people who have been consistently losing money for a consistent period of time. And if you are one of them, then you should stop trading. Like you should stop trading short time frames on leverage if you lose money. And I think that there's a serious percentage of market participants who have gambling addiction and they're not aware of it, or they don't want to deal with it, or it's encouraged enough through the ecosystem that they don't have to actually deal with the repercussions of that. Like I know people who have gambled away their entire Hyperliquid allocation. I know people who were losing a lot of money on Hyperliquid, made it all back, and then lost it all again, just being stupid.
It was so, sorry to cut you, and it was so sad to watch during that October time when everything was crashing down that so many of these wallets were just selling their hype stack to cover margin. It was so sad.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the first thing, because I think people see the traders posting P&L cards on Twitter and they think that's the only way forward. They think that's the only way to make it. But I see crypto as a much wider value creation and value generation. Like you can do, like airdrop farming is one of the best ways to generate capital. Contributing to protocols being built is a great way to increase your capital. Investing in longer time frames, 6 months, 12 months, obvious swing trades when it comes to like, okay, Hyperliquid's at $25. I think I will buy that, and I think it will be higher in the future. And being okay with a 2x instead of a 500x. Like you can build wealth quite quickly. And I think people always underestimate how quickly and concentrated wealth can be built. Like my net worth at the end of 2024 with Magic Eden, Hyperliquid, I hit a few like random meme coins that I don't really like touching meme coins, but for whatever reason, it felt obvious at certain times and certain coins. And in a very short period of time, in spite of being early in the cycle, in spite of investing and selling too soon and buying back too late and all of the things that you naturally do, there was a very large wealth concentration and like a wealth event for me over a few months. And I think most people, it goes back to this same thing we are talking about earlier, is like these kind of pivotal moments and these inflection points in our life. You have the same thing with your investing, trading, whatever, crypto career, where if you just kind of stay around and you stay curious and you don't lose all your money on a gambling addiction, you can probably be close to these wealth generation events. So that none of that was trading advice, but my advice for most people, I think, is to start there and see if you're actually a good trader.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Like even between me and KG, like I would say KG is probably more in the trenches on the trading side, and I've just lost a lot of money doing that. Like I will not trade perps, I will not do any of that. But during AI silly season, I did hit a couple of meme coins. During the Trump and millennial stuff, I did hit it. Like I think what I derive out of this is try everything, understand your strengths, and then understand what sort of comes out of that and double down. Is that sort of the right way to frame it, Jords?
Yeah, I mean, it's really about, like, I had this message about, I haven't replied to it, it was on Twitter, as someone saying kind of like really overthinking it. They're like, oh, how did you know to buy Hyperliquid under $30? Like, was it the macro? Was it you thought the AI bid would come over? Did you think was it the 4-year cycle? Like really kind of thinking the trade. And I just was like, it's a good coin that I think will be higher in the future, and it was significantly discounted, and that's it, and I have enough of a mid to long term frame on it that I think I'll be able to buy it lower and sell it higher. Like it doesn't need to line up to all of these systems, and you can be a good quote unquote trader just by buying things when they're heavily discounted and selling them when they're not,
Awesome. But we do the opposite. Buy high. But yeah, I think that one of the things that's probably will help is, this is probably not crypto, but can help, can translate, is, George, you talk a lot about attention spans over the last couple of months, how we've been trying to write long form stuff. You even advising people to get into something that's more, that helps with attention span. I know that you started your Substack, which is awesome. Everyone should subscribe to Jords Stuff Life. How has that been like, right? Like starting in something. I mean, Twitter is something so chaotic. Even though we're always there, we always use it. That mean that I'm never leaving this app. That always those kinds of movements happen every week. But what has been like starting your own Substack and the React response to it?
Honestly, I really, really, really love it. It's been something really meaningful to me, and it's like I've been fighting for a long time this kind of North Star of like, oh, I don't need my North Star in life to be just money. I don't need to just be like in the trenches doing all this shit. Like I don't want to be there. And through this process, I've discovered, like, I never thought I would understand what it's like to be in a shitty band and get a gig at like a shitty pub and have my friends all turn up and support. I never thought I would understand what it's like to be an artist in a market trying to sell my little, crafted mugs and like coffee cups and have my friends come along and buy one. I never thought I had that because I didn't identify as a creative. But this to me is like a creative pursuit that isn't in my niche of crypto and like these things. This is just topics that really interest me, and to share that with people and have people care about it, even if it's like, one person reads it, it feels way, way more special. And I've done a lot of things in crypto, and I've had people support me with large amounts of dollars and back me with like belief that they can get a good return on their investment. But this is the first thing I've done where like people are supporting me because they think what I have to say is interesting, and not because they expect a value return. Maybe they expect a return of wisdom or something. But it's been really nice. And I think the other unexpected outcome of it, which is the result for my kind of Twitter resurgence, is there is direct correlation between my Substack audience and my Twitter audience, of course. And the more active I am on Twitter,
Bitcoin price.
Yeah.
Also the Bitcoin price.
Yeah, of course. Directly pegged. But yeah, no, and I think that's been like an unexpected outcome, is I've seen that Substack is a good habit for me. It's really good for my brain to sit down for a few hours and contemplate deeply on interesting topics. And to be able to build that audience, I kind of should be posting more on Twitter in order to get people over on Substack. So it's made me I found more love for Twitter because it now reinforces a positive habit of mine. Whereas I really struggled to find a positive habit reinforced before the Substack. So I think like my recent kind of surge on Twitter is kind of has my Substack to thank for it, you know.
Will we see a book about life of Jords?
Well, I actually thought about, because initially I was like, I really like to write. Maybe I'll write a book. But then I looked into it, and like Dickens, for instance, he would publish like a chapter a month in a newspaper, and then after a year or two, he'd have a book and put it together, you know. And I think the more modern way to publish is to post these Substacks, build an audience of people who are willing to read longer form. And then if you ever write something, like A, you have a theme that interests you and is a repeating theme in the Substack, and B, you have an audience of people already. So for a publisher, it's makes it way nicer. So I don't know, we'll see. I think it's just something that I like to set up things that might be better in the future that you never know.
Also, I mean, I'm seeing it as a trend where you don't need to publish it. It's just for you and your family. I mean, I've been thinking about it, but I have to get back into my writing.
Do it,
I
man.
mean, I
It's
used to be
so
a
good for your brain. It's so nice.
yeah, I used to be like a writer for 3 years when I first started in crypto. I used to work for like independent kind of researcher. I have to get back into it. But Jots, this was so good. One final question before we go. I think our community would hate us if we don't ask it. What is your end of year price target for Hyperliquid?
It's so funny. I never like work in kind of timelines with the end of year. I'm already I always get scared because I just go based on kind of the vibes and the feeling in the air of where things are. And I think that my hope is that the peak is sometime next year, like, you know, mid next year, something like that is where I would love to, just personally for tax purposes and investment, like lifestyle, I would love that to be the case. I think what I've said previously is I don't think it's worth thinking about until Hyperliquid's at $100, like until it's 3 figures. So I think I will just kind of stay with that, which in any other industry, you know, that's a 250% increase, but I presume people will think that's trivial. But I think it completely depends on the market. Like if Bitcoin goes back over all-time highs, I think Hyperliquid will be on parity with Bitcoin's price minus a few zeros. You know, like if Bitcoin's at 120, maybe Hyperliquid's at 120.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I don't have a target, but I think people are grossly underestimating what the best case scenario is what I'll say. But yeah, George, this was awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I think recently this is the longest pod yet. But yeah, this is awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.